A game developer devises a cunning plan to take revenge on an obsessed gamer who ruined her life. The atmosphere is electric at Recreation Studios' event as Geneviève Lambert takes the stage. As the company's first female game development head, she excitedly reveals a preview of her team's latest creation. Sometime later, Geneviève finds herself driving through the pouring rain, her once long dark hair now cropped short and dyed a lighter shade. Exhausted, she decides to pull over. While drinking liquor, she contemplates just how much her life has changed, before eventually drifting off to sleep. The next morning, she resumes driving, eventually arriving at her destination. A charming bed and breakfast in a remote area, far from her home city of Montreal. As Geneviève exits her vehicle, she pauses to take in the view. From a distance, the owner's nephew, Martin, spots her and calls her attention. He then alerts his Aunt Louise before approaching the stranger. Just as he's walking towards her, she suddenly throws up, overwhelmed by the long drive and alcohol. Inside the house, Louise eventually appears, with the visibly distressed guest apologizing for throwing up in the property. Geneviève then admits she doesn't even know why she came and tries to get up to leave. Noticing her fragile state, Martin encourages her to stay seated. As Louise and Martin give her a moment to collect herself, the property owner introduces herself and her nephew. She then asks for the guest's name. After a brief pause, Geneviève replies that her name is Sophie, adding that she is from Montreal. In a hushed tone, she confides that she drove through the night, accounting for her weary demeanor. In response, Louise immediately instructs her nephew to prepare a room for her. As Martin does so, Louise softly remarks on the faint scent of alcohol lingering around Geneviève. With a concerned tone, she gently reminds her that drinking and driving isn't proper. Months earlier, Geneviève discovered a video of a masked man exposing her phone number, setting off a wave of cruelty. Hateful messages in an online forum, her pet's death, and a violent public attack. The morning after her first night at the B&B, Geneviève ignores a call from a private number and prepares to leave. On her way out, an old photo of Martin catches her eye. Just then, the man appears, greeting her warmly. Upon learning that Geneviève is already leaving, he invites her to stay longer. Noticing her interest in his photo, he jokes about it, getting her to laugh. Moved by the light-hearted exchange, Geneviève reconsiders and joins them for a meal downstairs. As they prepare to eat, Martin opens up about his struggles and how he's coping by stress eating, leading to some weight gain. While he eagerly devours his plate of pasta, his aunt reminds him to slow down. Upset, Martin responds that he doesn't mind being overweight. Sensing the brewing tension, Geneviève takes a bite of the food and compliments it, instantly brightening Martin's mood. She then informs Louise that she's staying for a while, with the latter assuring her that a few days of rest would do her good. As night falls, Geneviève struggles to sleep with her phone buzzing non-stop with calls from a private number. Frustrated, she steps outside for a drink. When the phone rings again, she finally decides to answer. A chilling voice on the other end then proceeds to warn her that no matter how many times she changes number, they'd still be able to track her. Before she could even process the call, Martin appears from behind, startling her. Noticing the bottle beside her, he suggests she might be struggling with alcohol. The conversation starts off tense, but quickly shifts as they laugh over Martin's awkward attempt at small talk. He then thanks her for being there, explaining he's felt lonely since moving away after being laid off. In turn, Geneviève shares that she was also fired, further deepening their connection. The next morning, Geneviève goes to the local store to buy milk. However, she hesitates before entering. This is because she recognizes the cashier as the woman from an intimate video posted on the same forum where she's being attacked. Once inside the store, Geneviève confronts a teenager after catching him shoplifting. However, he simply dismisses her and the cashier with a rude sneer. Upset by how she was treated, the cashier steps outside for a smoke. Geneviève then follows, offering comforting words. Touched by the gesture, the employee introduces herself as Chantal. When Geneviève returns to the B&B, she overhears Louise and Martin in the middle of a heated argument. Frustrated with having to support her 35-year-old nephew, Louise urges him to accept a job offer. Martin, however, shuts down the suggestion, dismissing the job as a minimum wage position that's beneath him. He then storms out of the house, only to find Geneviève near the door, clearly having overheard the argument. Later that day, Geneviève finds Martin outside, and offers a drink as a show of support. Back inside the house hours later, Louise plays some music and starts dancing, delighting her nephew and their guest. Martin soon joins in, with the tension from earlier that day clearly behind them. That night, once again unable to sleep, Geneviève gets up and notices Martin engrossed in a game on his computer. Not wanting to interrupt, she quietly steps outside. Standing alone on the dock overlooking the lake, Geneviève finds her thoughts drifting back to her painful past. She recalls the night she received an animated video portraying her being violated in the most horrific way, a memory that still haunts her. The next day, Geneviève pays Louise, who graciously accepts but warns her not to influence her nephew toward alcohol or drugs. While she acknowledges the elderly woman's concern, it soon becomes clear she has other plans. That evening, Geneviève brings alcohol and invites Martin to play truth or dare. When asked about his dreams, he deflects, citing financial struggles. She offers him money for an answer, but Martin counters with a playful dare, performing his aunt's ballet dance. Amused, she agrees. As he dances, she suddenly blurts out that she has an idea for how he could make money. Intrigued, Martin presses her for details, but Geneviève hesitates, embarrassed by her idea. When she bursts into laughter, an irritated Martin grabs her, startling her. He then vents his frustration, accusing her of mocking his financial struggles. Shocked, Geneviève retreats, but Martin soon follows, apologizing sincerely. The next morning, Martin finds his aunt on a video call with his ill mother. Upset, he abruptly ends the call, as talking to her only brings back painful reminders of his failures. To blow off some steam, he starts chopping wood outside. His aunt then walks in to tell him she'll be out for a while. Later, Geneviève invites Martin to come with her to buy some drinks, offering him the chance to drive her car as an incentive to get him to agree. Though thrilled to drive her BMW, his excitement vanishes at the store when he spots Chantal, his ex, behind the counter. Understanding his discomfort, Geneviève enters alone to buy the drinks. As she's about to pay, Martin honks, catching Chantal's attention and revealing he came with her. That evening, the pair is in high spirits, dancing and singing at the B&B. Hours later, Martin expresses his desire to leave, but says he's held back by a lack of money. He then brings up Geneviève's supposed idea for making money. Geneviève refuses to share, however, saying he's too sober to hear it. Determined, Martin grabs a drink and chugs it down. She then shows him a video on her phone in connection to her idea. While initially hesitant, Martin decides to go along with it. They eventually move downstairs to carry out Geneviève's plan, which turns out to be taking intimate videos and photos of Martin to sell on adult sites. When Martin shows reluctance, Geneviève gives him a drink and puts on some music. Fueled by alcohol and Geneviève's encouragement, Martin begins to pose and dance as she records him on her phone. Noticing that he's still somewhat uneasy, Geneviève asks if he's ever slept with a woman. This offends him, and he snaps back that he has, even mentioning Chantal. To help him relax further, she playfully asks him to name all the women he's been intimate with, and he begins listing names. She then flirts with him, teasing him about his apparent skill in the bedroom. This gets him excited, leading him to take off his shirt. With Martin now in the mood, Geneviève pulls out her phone and starts recording again. However, when she asks him to remove his shorts, he refuses and says he isn't ready for that. Frustrated, she informs him she's done helping and returns to her room. Martin then follows her, explaining that he actually feels embarrassed about the size of his private parts, which look even worse with him being overweight. While sympathetic, Geneviève teases him for a moment before offering words of reassurance. Moments later, the two of them head down to the lake and go for a swim. Under the water, Martin finally takes off his shorts and tosses them on the dock. Feeling mischievous, Geneviève steps out of the lake and throws the shorts even farther, ensuring Martin won't be able to retrieve them. She then grabs her phone and begins snapping pictures of him. Geneviève urges him to get out of the water, but he doesn't want to. Playfully, she submerges his head and then challenges him to come out if he wants her to stop. He finally agrees, but still looks hesitant. To encourage him even more, Geneviève removes her underwear and takes a selfie, which prompts Martin to eventually get out of the lake and pose for some pictures. With both now in a good mood, they begin frolicking through the woods completely undressed. Months earlier, a forum user who went by Grizzly Bear posted a threatening message to Geneviève, triggering the ordeal that she has been dealing with ever since. This all stemmed from a change that Geneviève and her team made to a beloved video game character named Lucy. Previously, Lucy was portrayed as the typical voluptuous figure favored by the male-dominated gaming community. However, Geneviève and her group opted for a more wholesome redesign, sparking anger among many gamers. As the lead game developer, Geneviève became their primary target. In the months that followed, hate messages began to flood online forums directed at her. At one point, Grizzly Bear discovered her address and shared it online. In a disturbing move, he followed it up by inciting others to visit her house and commit acts of violence. Weeks later, Grizzly Bear paid someone to expose her phone number, leading to incessant hate calls. He also launched a petition to have her fired. Over time, thousands rallied behind his petition. Grizzly Bear subsequently called for a boycott of the game until Geneviève was terminated. As animosity toward Geneviève escalated, a disturbed individual eventually harmed her cat. Upon learning of it, Grizzly Bear ominously suggested silencing her for good should be their next move. The morning following Geneviève and Martin's bonding time, she returns to the local store. Back at the B&B, Martin seizes the opportunity of Geneviève's absence to prepare a special meal for her. Just then, his aunt returns from her trip. Meanwhile, at the store, Geneviève is still in her car when Chantal's partner Dave arrives. Enraged, he confronts his girlfriend about her intimate video that's been spreading online. On the verge of tears, Chantal insists that she never intended for it to be public. However, despite her pleas, Dave ends their relationship. A shocked Geneviève could only look on. It's now getting late as Martin and Louise anxiously wait for Geneviève's return. To Martin's relief, he spots her through the window as she pulls up the driveway. With Geneviève back, Martin announces that he has something to share. Though a bit apprehensive, he reveals his plan to enroll in a culinary class in Montreal. His aunt readily offers her support, and when he turns to Geneviève, she also expresses approval of his decision. Nonetheless, as Louise showers her nephew with praise, Geneviève's mind drifts back to the night her cat was killed. That evening, authorities arrived at her home. As she expressed her frustration over the relentless hostility she had been enduring, an officer advised her to relocate temporarily while the investigation was ongoing. Later that night at the B&B, Geneviève is outside in deep contemplation when Martin joins her. Upon learning that she plans to return home soon, he brings up his plan of visiting her. He then mentions that he knows the photos she took were more about having fun than about making money. When she nods in agreement, Martin musters the courage to reveal his feelings for her. Assuming she feels the same, he leans in for a kiss, but Geneviève pulls back. With Martin stunned by the apparent rejection, she returns to her room and hastily packs her things. On the night Geneviève unveiled Lucy's new design, she highlighted the growing presence of female gamers. She acknowledged their desire for a heroine who was more than just superficially attractive. This was what ultimately inspired her to reimagine Lucy's character. But while the reception at the convention was positive, the online reaction was starkly different. Before long, Geneviève found herself turning to alcohol to deal with the hostility. During a tense company meeting, some urged Geneviève to apologize, while others defended her. However, with sales down 20% and over 100,000 signatures demanding her dismissal, the situation was dire. When her superior noticed she was drinking during the meeting, it became the final straw, and Geneviève was removed from her position, as the fans had demanded. At the B&B, just as Geneviève is about to leave her room, she receives a series of notifications from the forum. Grizzly Bear and others are now celebrating the news of her firing. However, Grizzly Bear's pursuit doesn't stop there. Unwilling to rest on his victory, he declares his determination to ensure she never works in the gaming industry again. Not long after Geneviève was fired, she enlisted the help of a friend to uncover the true identity of Grizzly Bear. She and her friend soon discovered that she wasn't his only victim. Completely fed up, Geneviève storms into Martin's room. In a surge of anger, she grabs his keyboard and hurls it downstairs. Taken aback by her outburst, Martin asks what's going on. Hearing the commotion, Louise rushes in to intervene. In that tense moment, Geneviève finally reveals that her name isn't Sophie, and that she is, in fact, Geneviève Lambert. A stunned Martin is at a loss for words. She then goes on to disclose that she knows he is Grizzly Bear, and since he uncovered her address, she took it upon herself to find his. Martin defiantly challenges Geneviève, asking what she plans to do about it. While his confused aunt tries to grasp the situation, he offers a sarcastic apology, but Geneviève quickly shuts him down. Still perplexed, Louise steps in, asking what else her nephew could do to make amends. In response, Geneviève tells her that she wants him to read a message he posted about her. Naturally, Martin declines. However, Geneviève is insistent, determined to expose his true nature to his aunt. When Martin continues to refuse, Geneviève threatens to post his embarrassing photos online. Undeterred, he remains firm, prompting her to open one of his messages and insist he read it. Desperate to end the confrontation, Louise begs him to comply. Upon realizing he has no choice, Martin begins reading, leaving his aunt utterly stunned by its contents. After finishing, Martin offers a seemingly sincere apology, but Geneviève dismisses it, accusing him of taking satisfaction in writing those messages. In defense, Martin claims they were just jokes and insists on his right to express himself freely. When Geneviève highlights the torment she's been enduring as a result, Martin shifts the blame to others, but she firmly reminds him that he was also the one who revealed her address and incited others to commit acts of violence. Therefore, he is still responsible. Martin then turns to his aunt, insisting that those were just words and that he is a good person in real life. However, Louise sides with Geneviève, expressing disappointment in her nephew's vile behavior. Martin later warns Geneviève that she has no right to publish his photos, but she counters by reminding him of what he did with Chantal's intimate video. Geneviève then confronts Martin about his refusal to take responsibility, calling him out for consistently shifting the blame onto others. Furious, he suddenly lunges at her and grabs her, but his aunt quickly intervenes, pulling them apart. Geneviève soon races out the door, leaving the B&B for good. The next morning, Chantal receives a message from Geneviève containing Martin's explicit photos. Along with them was a note saying that she can do whatever she wants with those. Though somewhat hesitant, Chantal eventually uploads the images to the same forum that Martin frequents as payback. Disgusted by her nephew's actions, Louise quietly leaves the B&B without a word. Meanwhile, Martin continues chopping wood, completely unaware of what Chantal did. Suddenly, 3 teenagers approach him, mocking his manhood. At that moment, it hits him. His embarrassing photos are now online, and panic washes over him. When he checks to confirm, he realizes the tables have turned. He's now the one on the receiving end of hateful messages. While at a restaurant, Geneviève's phone starts buzzing incessantly again with a flurry of notifications. This time, though, instead of silencing it, she decides to leave it behind and walk out. As she drives back to the city, she breaks into a smile, satisfied at having successfully carried out her plan for revenge against her tormentor.
Subscribe to watch more videos like this, turn on notifications and leave a like to help the channel out. Thank you for watching.